Welcome back to the Student Hub Live. Well, in the last of this morning's programme, we're going to focus on developing your skill set. And I'm joined by Chris Williams from the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences and Fiona Durham from the library team. And you've got some great resources to show our students. Now, throughout the day, we've been talking about a lot of things. We've been talking about getting organised and managing your time and getting a little bit ahead, but not too far ahead. And we've spoken about our badged open course being an OU student and about how important it is to get to grips with some of the OU things, but not to panic because we've got our induction event coming up in February. So Chris, I wonder if I can start with you by thinking about some of the resources that you've selected to show students from OpenLearn, and also if you can tell students a bit about OpenLearn, because like many things, we've been talking about the complexity of getting to know all these various websites and navigate them, which are very easy when you know how, but can be daunting and can be a big rabbit warren if you don't know what you're doing.
Well, OpenLearn is the OU's repository of online stuff for everybody. Its audience is the general public, but it's also Open University students as a subsidiary audience. It is not necessarily a rabbit warren so much as a sort of giant list, a grab bag, several thousand different things on there, and so having some idea of how best to look for stuff on it, depending on what it is you need that day, is quite important. So that's what I'd like to be able to just talk people through a little bit today, because some of the really useful things on OpenLearn are courses that take about maybe 6 hours, 12 hours self-study time, designed for distance learning students, designed for not necessarily always for Open University students, but for distance learning students generally. And so these open educational resources are really handy, and getting hold of where to find them, and hopefully I'll just talk a little bit about if you find something that looks like it might be useful, how to evaluate that.
Well, this is what I mean by rabbit warren, because I didn't mean that as such. I meant whenever I go on the website, I am hours and hours thinking, oh my goodness, that looks so interesting, and I'll find so much stuff there that I wouldn't have seen elsewhere. Let's take a look then at a slide, because we've got some slides here that show students what it is, and maybe you can talk again about this important thing about not spending hours doing the wrong thing. So this is an image from OpenLearn, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, sure. So this is just one of the, if you were to get onto the Skills tab and then click on Skills for Study, and these URLs are going to be available at the end, so you don't have to note them down or think too much about them. Here, what you can see is you can see a number of skills-based courses. What you've got on there is how long we reckon it'll take you to do them. Those are normally on the high side. So something that says it's going to take 12 hours, you know, if you want to really go over every word and read it very closely, it probably could take you 12 hours, but you're probably going to go a bit quicker than that.
So this is a bit of a lighter sort of estimate than your module time, that is probably more of an accurate estimate. And so once you've seen then the time and things, you also get an idea about the course contents, and so we have another slide here that shows about that. And the important thing here is these learning outcomes, which OU students will become very familiar with. What can you tell us about this though, Chris?
Well, once you click onto the front page of one of those courses, you'll see a couple of learning outcomes that will say, on that bullet point list, for example, it's about improving the particular skills that course will tell you about. The other thing that can be quite useful as well, if you could just go back on that one slide, sorry.
Yeah, the previous one.
You've got on the right, you've got a number of different formats. So some people find it HTML, going through their computers, the best way to look at things. For others, for various reasons, we've got PDFs, we've got EPUBs, we've got Word. So you've got alternative formats available for all of these things. So if you've got problems going through HTML, not a problem.
Brilliant. Excellent for doing on the move as well, I've heard.
Yes.
Perfect. So students can find these. Now, you spoke about the importance of not spending too much time doing the wrong thing and these learning outcomes. How might students get to grips with what might be a useful space of time for them?
Well, when you've got that front page open, you can have a look at the contents page. Just click into a couple of random bits of content and see what you're being told there. And if it's something you feel you need to know. I don't necessarily think it's about right or wrong choices. If you're thinking, I probably want to increase my skills in a particular area, you might find that there's one course that does 85% of what you want. There's one that does 100% but takes twice as long. It's worth spending a bit of time experimenting. You know, if you're going to spend 2 hours looking at something, maybe spend 10 minutes beforehand searching through all the various courses that you think might be useful to choose the one you think is best for you. There's never really a particularly wrong answer. You're normally going to find something that's helpful. It's all about getting good trade-offs between the amount of time you spend and the amount of things you need to know you learn, and probably some extra stuff you pick up on the way as well.
Now, one of the things that we were talking about earlier was reading and note-taking, and these are really important issues. Now, you've chosen one of the courses to show students about. So the reading and note-taking course.
Well, what's good about this course is that it does what all these courses do very well, which is to take a daunting single problem and to break it down into a series of smaller, bite-sized problems. It gives you a checklist. It says, OK, let's work this one out. Here's a piece of text, make some notes. What do your notes look like? This is what our notes look like. This is how we did it. This is how we approached it. Have another look. So what all of these courses are about is they're about that point when you're stuck, that horrible point when you just think, I'm not quite sure what problem I have to solve. It's more than I can cope with. They say, OK, fine. We know you're stuck. Here, we'll take this problem, we'll split it up. Do this, do that, do that. Here's the checklist. Go through them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can solve that problem by taking it bit by bit.
So we asked people at home, when I think of note-taking, I think of, and let's see what they had to say.
Okay.
Highlighting, bullet points, highlighter pens coming up a lot. Important points, mind mapping, playing lots of pages, pause and continue. How much to write, flashcards, stationery, plagiarism, breaking down information, post-it notes, learning, keywords, colouring pencils, colour pencils, using own words is very important, reading again. Chris, what do you make of that? And what sorts of things would you say for some of the things that are coming up that might be useful for students?
One thing I would say is always bear in mind the fact that if you're taking notes, you're going to be going back to them to write your assignment up. And have yourself a code that you always stick to, which says, this is a direct quote, and always write the page number down because you will need it. Even if you think you...
Students can't remember where they found things.
And so you always say, these are my words, these are words that I am quoting directly, and these are words that I am paraphrasing. I put one lot in brackets, I put one lot in italics, and I put one lot in main text. And that's a really good way of knowing when you're coming to write up your essay or whatever assignment you've got, exactly what the status of this stuff you've got on your notes is. Another thing, someone put not rambling, and I think that's important to try and keep it succinct. On the other hand, the other thing to accept always is that no note-taking is ever going to be perfect. You're always going to come up either with not quite enough notes or with too many notes. Everything, you will always, I've been working as an academic and taking notes and doing degrees for 30 years. I have never yet taken exactly what I need from something. I've always taken a little bit, either a lot or an awful lot too much, or not nearly enough, and I've had to go back. It's all about trying to get closer to that optimum thing, not beating yourself up when you think, oh no, I took twice as many notes as I should have done. Everyone is getting it wrong. Some of us are learning to get it wrong a bit less, but there's no 100% right, I got this one just right point. You're always learning how to learn slightly better, but you're never going to get the perfect set of notes.
I'd absolutely agree. I think, and it is a work in progress. But one point that came up there, Fiona, I wonder if you might comment on, is the plagiarism. And also you mentioned that you get calls at the library help desk about students not remembering where they see things. And also, Chris, you were sort of saying writing too much. Some students might forget if they've quoted something and copy from the module, then go to write their assignment and think that those are their own words and then put them in. And as you know, we don't want students to plagiarise, which means to take things and not say the source that they're from.
So referencing is key here. It's actually referencing and making, as Chris said, a note of where you found something, and the page numbers is really helpful because it's so easy to go back to it when you do that. I just wanted to mention Being Digital, which is a set of bite-sized skill activities that we have in the library, and I just wanted to just highlight one in particular, which is Being Digital comes in pathways, and there's a referencing pathway. And this has a number of activities in it, most of which take between 5 and 10 minutes. So they're really short, and it introduces you to referencing, and then it explains how to reference different kinds of items. So this is a really handy set of activities which you can find. And the link to Being Digital is in the resources section of this particular Student Hub Live. So do have a look at the activities. They also cover things like plagiarism, trust online, how to do a good search, that kind of thing too. Very useful skills as well, just for everyday life. And thank you, Michelle, for putting that link in the chat room. That's great for everybody back at home. Okay, so we've thought about note-taking and the importance of some of those things, and you've mentioned, Chris, the OpenLearn resource on that, and how students might go through that and
pick various strategies, and you said to sort of problem solve things as well. So in this particular resource, what might students expect to learn about reading and note-taking? Can you give us a little bit of a flavour about some of the strategies that they could look forward to seeing?
Well, essentially it's about just going through a piece of text and try and work out what the key points are. And like I mentioned earlier, it really is about recognising that these are strategies. This isn't about a right or wrong answer. One of the useful things about all the stuff on OpenLearn for skills development is that it invites you to think about, well, what worries me about this? What daunts me about this? Why am I worried about deadlines? Why am I worried about note-taking? But the response isn't just to say, well, don't be worried. It's to say, okay, that's fine. This is how to overcome that. You know, this is for some people, actually it's better to leave it closer to the last minute. For other people, it really isn't. But these are the advantages and disadvantages of both strategies. In terms of note-taking, again, there isn't a single right way to do notes. Particularly, some people are printing things out and highlighting. Some people have got their own notebook. Some people are typing up. A lot of it depends on the time and space you can find to study. And so it's not about a single right or wrong way that everyone must do this and this is the best way. It's about advantages and disadvantages of each approach. Give it a trial, see how it works for you.
Now, on the slide you showed us, Chris, there were some activities and students could write in the boxes, and then there was this reveal discussion tab as well. Now, tell us about who can see that and why students might want to type it into the internet, because I know we worry about security and our information, whether our tutor might then see it and go, aha.
All of the OpenLearn courses, it's basically between you and that website. You know, it's a locked off space. No one else can see that. You can register with OpenLearn if you want to do these courses, which means that the website then keeps a record of what you've done and what you haven't,
so
which
you
can be quite useful to go back to where you last were. And of course, if you're registered, you can also take advantage of some of the courses that are badged, and you can get yourself a badge as well, and you can then put that on a record of achievement if you want to. And in the future, I think more of that is going to be able to be porting over to people's student records as well. Again, if you want to, but you don't need to register to do any of this. It's a 24-hour, 24/7 flat file stuff. It's available whenever you can study. And so these things, you could, for example, think, I just want to do this in 2 hours at a time, or stop, go back in a fortnight. That's not a problem. It's more like your workbooks in that respect than it is like your relationship with a tutor.
And very good idea to start getting in the habit of that now. When you're sort of thinking about your time planning, everyone's eager to get going. You could think, okay, let me try 2 hours. Let me see if I can do an hour here, an hour there. Find out when I can concentrate. So it's a great way to actually put some of that into practice. If we skip one of the slides and look at the writing and English slide, which is another resource that we wanted to highlight, which has got 3 different types of courses on there, again, which will appeal to students. So let's take a look at this one.
Yeah, and so if we look back at the, this is going from the OpenLearn front page, clicking on the Skills tab. You'll note there you've got Skills for Work, Skills for Study, and Skills for Study is dark blue. When you click on the Skills tab in OpenLearn, the default is for Skills for Work, and then you can't find the study thing. So be aware of that button on Skills for Study.
Top tip.
Yeah. A lot of these courses, some of them are written out of different units. So, for example, the European Union Law one is written, of course, out of FBL. The essay writing and report writing, I think that one comes out of the Education Department. Although these are written by specific units, they're about generic skills. And so the units, so STEM, for example, has produced a number of different OpenLearn courses, short ones, 12 hours on graphs and data. But of course, you know, some of my history students at level 3 in FAS are also needing to understand graphs and data. Similarly, STEM students are needing to write essays. And so although these come from a particular part of the OU, the skills they're teaching can be used by students in other parts as well. But it's worthwhile bearing that in mind when you're reading through the examples. You might come across a social science example, for example, in some of these. You might come across an education example. It's the skills, though, the effective presentation and writing of assignment skills are pretty generic.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got an essay writing workshop on Wednesday night. So if you'd like to come along to that, that's an Adobe Connect, and Isabella and I will be running that, 2 of those sessions. So get a ticket if you would like to join us on that from looking at the Student Hub Live website. Now, Chris, You've spoken about some of these courses, but I'd like to go into detail because we've been talking about the time planner this week and in the sessions earlier today, and about the importance of breaking things down and then looking week by week with a focus at what you're doing. So you've got one example here with the learning outcomes and then each week sort of sections broken down. I wonder if we might just scroll through those and show students what they look like. So here's the whole programme.
Yeah, so if we look, so if you were to click on one of those courses, and this is the writing one,
Yeah.
you come across all these different section numbers. To the right of those, you've got the little down arrow, that little the little bird in flight thing, which if you were to click on, then opens up the content of that particular section and gives you a chance to find out what that section's about. Because if you look at that as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the titles next to them are quite generic. You know, the understanding, preparation, planning doesn't really say what it's going to teach you. So you can look at that contents page and think, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to get out of this. What planning of what? But you can always click on that little down arrow if you want to, and if you have the next slide, which hopefully has the one I prepared earlier, yes, get in, yeah. So this then breaks it down, and I think that's a much easier level to look at these courses and think to yourself, yeah, actually, this is the kind of level upon which I think I do need to work. This is the stuff that's going to be good for me.
Yeah. Excellent. And one of those key techniques we often teach students as well in terms of like reading and note-taking is scanning, seeing what's in there, looking at the contents to get an idea of the various sections. And then we've got one example of the activities as well that you spoke about earlier. Let's just show students that example finally, where you spoke about how important it was to get a sense of things and revealing discussions that you might hear about other students' experiences.
Yeah, and this is the looking at writing assignments, inviting the person who's doing the course to confront the issue of dreading deadlines. Because speaking as someone who dreads deadlines, a lot of us dread deadlines. There are a number of different strategies for getting around that, and the courses are about sort of seeing where your weak points are, where your strengths are, working out the benefits and the costs of different strategies, to deal with the fact that learning isn't just a dry intellectual process. It's also an emotional process, and the amount of spoons we've got, the amount of strength we can bring to each week, is variable, and people have got different strengths and weaknesses. We have to recognise that, and we have to work out. I think of it sometimes as having a deck of cards in your hand, and you think, right, now I need to play that card. I need to play the card of stopping and thinking. Now I need to play another card. I need to play just focus on what I'm really interested in, and having that kind of idea of, well, if I'm confronted by this particular problem, I know that I've got that checklist. It might take a bit of time. I can go back to that and I can work through the checklist 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I can beat this problem.
You almost need a problem-solving toolkit of the ways you could do things and get them out if you're feeling that up against it. I know Catherine was having a problem with her. She's got an assignment due. She doesn't know what to do about it. But perhaps if when you're doing something like this, you could think of some of the strategies and then go through those options when you're feeling really up against it. It might, give you some scope in terms of thinking about things. Well, we asked everyone at home what the biggest problem they have when writing assignments is. So let's see if there's anything we can help with. Time is the key thing here, and referencing, Fiona, you'll be delighted. I was hoping this would come up. Inexperience, concentration, being stuck, worrying, confidence, a lot of emotional things, a lot of specific things that may be solved, like grammar, for example, by some of the resources you've been talking about, Chris. Knowing what to put, academic language formats, using your own words, writing approaches, 2 TMAs together, anxious they're missing the point, disability. So there's a lot of things here, brevity, not going off topic, a lot of anxieties here, and some of these things are things that I guess you can learn to do, and some of them are things like you say, you can sit with and know that they're there and that they're okay to be there, and it's about overcoming them.
I'm a bit sad really to see that referencing is in such big letters.
You would be.
Chris and I were discussing this just beforehand actually, and referencing is really quite a small part of the marks you get for as an assignment, but students very often obsess about it.
It's often a big concern, I think, partly because sometimes we think, right, we're at university, we've got to do this academic writing, and we know referencing is a part of it, but I don't know what that means or what it looks like, and it's that fear of the unknown.
Can I just give a quick plug for the library training sessions?
Yes, please do.
We have 2 coming up this month, and then there's a whole lot more being released for next month. And the next one is, in fact, the why and how of referencing.
So when is that, and how do students get involved?
The 2nd of January, and it's just a half-hour session. It's not very long, and you'll find a link to it on the library website. The training sessions are all linked there, and basically any student or member of staff can just turn up to a library training session. They're freely available to all students, and you just turn up for half an hour and online, yes. And you can in fact use the sessions that the library runs if you're not familiar with Adobe Connect, just to get a feel for how the how Adobe Connect actually works. So I recommend them, and the next one after that is Introduction to Library Services, and then we're running a whole lot more in February.
So the 22nd of January and the 30th of January are the dates that we've got for those.
That's
and
right.
You can also find out on the Facebook page, which I like, so that it comes up on my news feed as well, and then I always get the ideas of the sessions
Yes,
that
we're
you're
on
running.
social media too.
Ah, you would being digital and all, Fiona. So the library sessions are really, really good fun, and a short bite-sized way of getting into something.
I'll just mention the library help desk as well while we're on the subject, because if you have got a really horrendous referencing inquiry, you can come to the library help desk, and we will attempt to answer your referencing inquiries should you have any.
And what does the help desk look like?
Well, you can find a link to the library help desk on every single page of the library website, and basically Monday to Friday we answer inquiries by email and by telephone, office hours, and then we also run a 24/7 web chat service. And that's not because we sit up all night waiting for your inquiry. We are actually part of an international cooperative of librarians with the United States. So if you're working at 3 in the morning and you're obsessing about referencing, you can in fact contact a librarian in the United States, somewhere like Washington or California, and they'll be able to answer your queries, because
In a
they...
probably really chirpy way as well.
That's right. Well, it'll be morning for them, won't it?
I've used this and it is great. I recommend it. It's marvellous. Helpful person, available in real time in the middle of the night.
Yeah, no,
It's just great.
absolutely. So all of these are on your student homepage, which is different to your module website, but there are often links to and from. So just have a look around there, and the links are also on the Student Hub Live website, and they will be in the chat box, I know, because HJ Michelle will be putting those in right now. HJ Michelle, do we have any questions that people would like to know about, and how is everyone doing back home?
We're all doing well. There's so much being shared on the chat, which is fantastic. I think Amber had a fantastic question about reading at a slow pace. Is there any strategies or advice you can give her, maybe to improve her reading skills?
I think maybe the important thing is to think about being conscious of what you're trying to get out of any particular transaction when you're reading. You know, are you really focusing in very heavily on every word? Because some of the stuff, for example, if you're doing the Arts Access course, one of the things you will be taught is how to really, really closely read a poem and think about every single word. And that really does take you, it's supposed to take you half an hour to read a haiku. Other times, of course, what we're trying to get people to do and what you need to do is to sort of think, right, I've got a whole book, I've got to work out how to use the index, how to use the contents page, how to do a bit of skimming with chapter titles to get what I need out of it in half an hour. And then you're kind of time limited rather than volume limited. And a lot of other things are kind of in between. One useful reading skill is proofreading, reading your own stuff. Just being able to focus on every word, look at every column, every comma. I did a really good National Extension College distance learning course on this about 30 years ago that taught me how to do this, and it was just great. But it's a different kind of reading skill, and actually not all reading skills are the same. Really close reading, I find, is a very different thing to desperately going through the index to try and find a particular fact. So medium speed reading, you almost want to but I think it's one of those questions where the answer is it depends, but the important thing to bear in mind is try and develop different reading techniques for different sorts of problem.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And we answered Amber's question. It might not have done.
Yeah, no, we did. And there's a really good, if you go to the Student Hub Live YouTube page or the catch up on the website, there's some really good sessions on different styles of reading and note taking as well that you might want to look at. And I know HJ's put the links to that in the chat, so thank you for that. Right, let's see what you've all found is most useful from today's session. So we asked you earlier what 3 things you found useful, and I'm really pleased to see that meeting people and chatting has come up really highly there. Website links, greater insight, looking at the study planner, timekeeping, feeling like you're not alone, new resources, hearing the opinions of people, structure preparation, the big white wall, being prepared, community, meeting others, feeling like you're all in the same boat, better understanding, OpenLearn skills, taking a look at resources, reassuring, motivating. So some wonderful things there that have come out of today's session. It is so exciting being an Open University student, and people have been saying they've been a bit nervous but also very excited about it. What advice would you both give to students?
Well, take every week as it comes. You know, particularly when you've just been given or you're about to be given a box full of stuff plus an infinitely large website to have a look at, and about 8 different people saying if you've got any problems, this is the thing to do. Just think, actually, what do I need to get through the end of week 1? You know, don't be daunted by the fact that you'll be expected in the next 6 months or the next 6 years to learn a huge amount. That's okay, because in the next 6 hours, we're expecting you to do some straightforward things that several thousand other people have also done or will be about to do. And the people who are helping you out are people who are used to answering those questions. Maybe the one thing is, often I see on Facebook people saying, oh, this may be a stupid question, but it is not a stupid question. If you feel you need to ask the question, it's not a stupid question. There are people who are paid good money sitting there waiting for these questions, whose job it is to answer them. Ask that question. Do not be inhibited by thinking, oh, I can't ask that, it's a silly question. No, this is a complicated process. We've given you a lot of information. We've asked you to make a lot of different decisions. Of course there are points of confusion. Everyone has them, keeps on having them. There are no stupid questions.
Excellent. And we've had a question as well, Fiona, about if people can't make some of the live sessions that the library run as well. So you've mentioned that there are the live sessions as well, but are they available to watch afterwards?
Yes, we have recordings of all the sessions that we run. There's about 6 or 7 different sessions we run nowadays, and you can view the recording. But I will say it's more fun going to a live session.
Definitely, and they are regular as well.
Yeah, right. So they run regularly throughout the year.
Yeah, so if you can't get to the one on the 22nd of January or the 30th of January, don't worry, there'll be plenty more. Or you can watch them at 3 in the morning when you're panicking and texting a librarian in the United States. So, so that's been really good. What advice would you say, particularly maybe for those students who are worried about the referencing, Fiona?
Well, I would say don't obsess too much about referencing, because
Just mildly.
Just mildly, yes. I mean, it's more about avoiding plagiarism, isn't it? And the actual nitty-gritty detail of the italics and commas and full stops in the referencing is just it's not worth worrying about.
No. Especially early on, at Access are never one with most our students.
Yeah. Nobody's going to pull you up because you've missed out a few commas or whatever. So, but what I would say to students, because I've done a few Open University courses myself over the years, is that enjoy your journey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is absolutely amazing. So, well, thank you both so much for sharing some brilliant advice. And I hope that's given you ideas about things you can get involved with, things you can go and look at, and practice your time management and getting your study space sorted. HJ and Michelle, some final words from you, please.
Well, we've just had fantastic chat today. There's been loads of links and resources that everyone shared, and we've just been tabbing everything, which is fantastic. So we've got lots to look at later. And of course, all the resources as well on our website that we've talked about today. But if there's anything you think we've missed in the chat, it has been going very quickly. Or if anything that you think about after, just send us an email, studenthub@open.ac.uk, or head to our Twitter as well, @StudentHubLive, and we will get back to you.
And it's nice to see how many people have said that they've enjoyed and learned from today's session. I think a few people are a little less anxious, which is great. And really, thank you for all the links as well. Lots of great stuff coming in.
Brilliant, excellent. Well, thank you HJ, thank you Michelle, and thank all my guests as well who've been on today, filling you in, but most importantly, thank you at home for making the time to come along, for getting to know each other and sharing so openly. I think this has been a really chatty session. You're all rearing to go. Don't forget to join us for our full induction day on the 4th of February, where we'll be telling you all about the various nitty-gritty of what things like the library, the career services, the student support team can do for you. You'll be talking speaking to tutors will have the opportunity to come and do an online tutorial with us. We'll be having our famous Wheel of Ologies quiz where you can play at home against the teams in the studio, and we'll be hearing about all sorts of things that the OU do with things like the BBC and the co-productions that we do there as well. So please do put that in your diary. We also have a Student Hub Live workshop this week, which is on essay writing. So join myself and Isabella for that. That's in Adobe Connect, a slightly different format. But if you look at the trailer on the website, you can get a sense of what that's like. Again, it's a really chatty space where you'll have activities to do and learn all about how planning your essay can be done slightly better, perhaps, than you may have been doing it beforehand. There's lots and lots of events that we've got lined up throughout the calendar year, so do subscribe to our YouTube page to find the trailers that come up, and also take regular looks at the website where you can find out more about events that are up and coming. But that's all we've got time for this morning. I'll be back though at 1 o'clock. We're doing a session on entrepreneurship, and there's a fantastic competition. So if you've got a business idea and you'd be interested in entering a competition to get some money to take it forward and also have experts help you formulate your business model, then join us between 1 and 3 for that session this afternoon, again just by clicking back to the Student Hub Live website and re-entering that event shortly before 1 o'clock. So I will see you then if you're going to come along to that. Otherwise, I hope you can join us on the 4th of February or at our essay writing workshop on Wednesday. That's been all from us today. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope you've enjoyed the show. See you soon.